Thanks, Hoshie, and thanks everyone for being here. I think it's great to be part of this roundtable and talk about the paradigm shift that we're experiencing today. I think a lot of us talked about how digitization has helped our businesses. Some of us have gone through a different experience, but I think one thing is certain, it has helped us either to survive or stay afloat and make it a competitive advantage for us in the marketplace. I'd like to take this opportunity to set the tone on the challenges that we're up against and probably, as Hoshie said, learn from each other on the way forward. I was reading somewhere, and this is a very interesting article that I read, which talked about a new concept which I'd never heard about. It's called teacup, and it was all about thinking correctly under pressure, the keyword being correctly here. And I think what I wanted to set as a tone was the challenges that are happening in the market and the pressures that nearly everyone is going to see with the macro conditions that are changing, and how do we make sure that our organizations and our people that represent our organizations are thinking correctly as we go ahead, right? So we have seen three basic questions that normally every revenue generating organization tries to answer, and that fundamentally has not changed. The three basic questions that probably come to mind for me is like, who do you sell to? When is the right time to sell, and more importantly, the how and the why behind it. And however, too many organizations, as I said, are experiencing the macro headwinds depending on what you're doing as a business and where you're doing business in. And sales has never been hit by a perfect storm like ever before. And we wanted to just bring out a couple of things that are driving this change. Firstly, I think because of the pandemic, everything moved online. And that changed pretty much how we did business, how we engaged with clients, how our clients engaged with us. That has never been different, experienced by us ever before, right? And as a result of this, I think a couple of things happened. We have seen the great reshuffle. Nearly every organization has seen people change in their workforce. We've seen our customers change as well. Global data from LinkedIn kind of suggests that in the period of December 21 to March 22, about 21% of the decision makers kind of changed roles. And if you are thinking about selling into India, there's a very similar trend that's also in India. This happens to be Q4, and this is something that we'll all be wanting to make sure this is the best quarter, and we are upping our game in this quarter. But we believe and we know that this is going to be a change that's going to come in even in this particular Q4. So how do we de-risk our sales? India, also based on research that we did, we realized that buying itself has become a little complex. And when I say complex, this is a little different from how the US market or the Europe market kind of behaves. We have much more touch points in India that we ever had before. So our survey says that typical interaction has gone up to about 27 compared to 17 that we saw in India. So for closing a deal, we nearly have to go talk to many more people. And that has kind of increased the sales cycle. That has put pressure on how fast can we close a deal, and how do we de-risk our business, right? And more businesses are coming back and saying that they are seeing a delay in the sales cycle. So all that is happening. And obviously along with all this, where does LinkedIn come in? I think that's an important plug. Pretty much, we kind of have about 875 million members globally on our platform, with about 59 million companies that are active on the platform. The India representation of that number is about close to 100 million members, and about 3 million companies that are on the platform and actively engaging. So pretty much a global representation of the workforce is what we see. And therefore the data and insights that we have for or view to is probably very unique in that sense, because it's real time, it's self-authored, and people are putting up everything that we're seeing. And this data is kind of getting refreshed about 1.7 billion times a day, because that's the kind of activity that is happening on the platform, right? So I want to just quickly come on the topic that we want to discuss in the first question. Therefore, that's going to come along with that is we did a survey a couple of months ago, and this is called the State of Sales Survey, and where we interviewed decision makers on the buyer side and also organizations on the revenue side which are trying to sell. And a couple of trends came out of that. And the biggest trend that we saw, and we don't see too many people talk about it or think about this, is about the changing demographic in our workplace and the behaviors that come along with it. So very clearly about 70% of the generation that is sitting on the platform in India is represented by Gen Zs and millennials. Now, how do they behave? How do they engage? How do they interact with us? What is the expectations that they have internally from us? And if they're on the client side, how do we engage with them differently? Is something which is a big topic of discussion that we believe is happening in a lot of places. But if it is not happening, I would encourage all of you to think about how is that demographic change taking shape in your environment. We have seen in the last 5 years, specifically in India, the Gen Z population has grown to about 25%, and that probably talks to a lot about the way that they want to work. They want to be more flexible. They definitely are looking at growth. They're perfectly okay with leaving jobs in 2 years, 3 years and moving on to something else. And they're very much associated with the purpose that they want to solve. And also a very interesting fact from LinkedIn is also around the fact that if you look at the last jobs that are being posted in India, obviously the number of jobs after the Great Reshuffle, which kind of had been in existence for the last 2.5 years, currently we're seeing jobs kind of getting tapered down, but more than 50% of the applications that are still going on for new jobs are going towards remote jobs. So people are wanting to still look at flexibility as a big thing. I touched upon the fact that the Great Reshuffle has impacted at the global level. I just wanted to share a few numbers for India. If I look at the the B2B sellers, that particular job transition has happened upwards of about 93% in India. And the people that they sell to, decision makers, which are director plus and above in the different organizations, that has changed by about 59%. So the entire composition of who we're selling to and who from our side is selling to those folks have changed. And therefore, the leading question that I had obviously is that if you keep, and there are two parts to this question, and I'll probably first ask this to Manoj, you, and then we can go to Ramanan as a second person to answer this. And the two parts to this question obviously is that which of these do you think resonated most in your business, and how have your teams responded to it? And I think Manoj, yours is a very interesting organization to start off with, because you were in the pandemic and you wanted to sell to hospitality, and that industry was a very different industry 2 years ago than what it is today. So wanted to get your perspective on this.
See that report, coming back to the industry where we work, honestly, went through tons of challenges. Obviously, India is very different than other countries because of the sheer size of the country, but we are quite blessed in India because what happens, the hotels in India didn't went through the kind of challenges where mostly in Southeast Asia and other regions, or Europe or in US or in Latin America, the hotels they have faced, right? A lot of hotels have closed down, right, during this pandemic. But in India, we have a lot of, we have religious tourism, we have, a lot of things which keep going. In fact, people, the resorts in India did really during the COVID period, they did really good business than what they did, pre-COVID. So coming back to kind of like how this over the period, post pandemic, how it has been changed. Obviously, this industry is typically requires a lot of human touch points. You have to go meet people. This is all personalization, right? When you go through that check-in process, you stay in a hotel. They say that it is home away from home, right? So the decision makers, precisely, it depends. I understand that now. It all depends on the kind of product you are selling, the market you are selling, and the kind of like audience you have, right? So that's the most important factor. So for us, I remember that people during the pandemic, when the entire country was going through challenges where, the decision makers, they expected us that to be there on the table to kind of to discuss with them. So that's what precisely we went through. But obviously, as a company, we have work from home. Culturally, if you look at the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia, precisely these are the regions where I directly am involved and manage. we love actually, interactions. We love to go meet people, to sit across the table, to kind of, engage in conversation. That's what, this industry demands. I mean, I know that as an organization, we have work from anywhere policy. I mean, I think 80% of our workforce now, they're working from wherever. I mean, we have given them the opportunity to go and work anywhere. But for us, while we have a large sales team spread across in entire Southeast Asia and South Asia, every day the people are actually on the street. They go and meet people. We sign up. We sign up a new hotel every day. New sign up for us every day happens in this geography. So while we talk about digitalization, but it is all about personalization, which is more kind of like the demands, direct meeting, human touch, because the way they manage their guests, they expect us to be there. So I think that it will not take away the kind of going there, meeting them, talking to them. So the more time you spend, I think that's the advantage. The digitization is going to remain there. Online meetings, all those. Obviously, half of the things like we have moved. Like currently, the domain experts, they manage the presentation online, but that personal touch will remain always.
Thanks, Manoj. I'm sure Elon Musk is going to be very happy hearing this. I think it's a constant battle right now between policy and what people actually want on the ground. And I wanted to just shift this focus also to Ramanan, you, and hear a little bit about how have you seen the demographic change happen? Because I think that's something that I wanted you to also think about and share with us your views around how is that impacting your team, especially in the last couple of years that's just gone by.
Sure. So thanks, Aday. There were a lot of information and data that you had posted. I think it will take some time to consume the data that you shared, and I hope that you will be able to share it post this meeting with all of us so that we can reflect on it. Like Manoj said, at the end of the day, we are all social animals, right? We like to have physical interaction, social connects. Okay, that's the reality. But let me reflect on the last 2 years. Okay, reality is that we interact with as a company at the Intellect Design Arena. Our focus is banks and financial institutions and insurance companies. It was moving into a hybrid model. I don't know if the number of count of 27 interactions to close the sale was relevant for us, but yes, maybe it was always there, and maybe we didn't track the number. But it actually moved to the virtual or hybrid mode, I would say. Advantages of moving to virtual hybrid for us was you could get the best of resources from across the globe to have the conversations, right? So if you're going to have a large demo with large financial institutions, let me share a few things. I may not be able to name the exact entity. We closed some central banking deals across the globe completely virtually, right from the first interaction till the closure of sale, to some parts of implementation happening virtually. Okay, so that's the reality of life. So getting back to generic feedback, yes, having virtual meetings enabled us to get the best resources on the ground to give the demo, but the final closure post-COVID at least has moved back to in-person, right? Over a cup of coffee, you can discuss much more than what you could ever discuss on a virtual media. Okay, you get the feel, are able to judge the decision makers' intent if you are sitting across the table. So while there can be a lot of debate whether selling is an art or a science, I think it's a combination, right? Science till a certain stage where you bring the papers to the decision makers table, where you will have to demonstrate technical capabilities to reach there, and commercial acumen to make sure that you are right on the ball. But the final art of closure, I think, is an art, right? So maybe I will say 80-20. science, 20% art.
Thanks, Ramanan. I think it's a very interesting observation. We keep thinking about how much of science and how much of art, and I'm gonna definitely agree with the sentiment that you throw that hybrid is here to stay. I don't think hybrid is going away. More so now in this new world where COVID is kind of easing out its restrictions. So definitely hybrid is going to be the new way of doing business, right? And
normalize.
Yeah. And I would want to now kind of put PUNEET on the spot. I know he did mention initially that his business obviously is thriving in this pandemic, and you joined NetApp in the middle of it. So what I wanted to specifically kind of hear from you, apart from your thoughts and how 2 years gone by, but also the great reshuffle and the changes, any feedback that you have or any sentiments that you could share with the team around, though there was a pull for digitization and that helped business, but was there anything that you saw with the great reshuffle that was happening all over? People were coming in, going out. There was a huge demand of talent and the right talent. The labor market was very hot, right? So did that impact your business in terms of you could have done much better, considering if some of these changes had not happened in the marketplace?
Hey, thanks for that. So, firstly, you're absolutely right, and firstly, good to connect with you, Abhay, again after a couple of years. So good to see you. And you're right that I joined when the lockdown just started. Right, that was April of 2020. Was very interesting to come up to speed in a new organization completely virtually, and I think we moved from a world which was a lot of face-to-face. And a lot of the, when we would meet with clients, the whole expectation of the client was that someone will come and meet me physically face to face, and that's how business was happening. I think the whole adoption of going virtually, conducting business, getting the team enabled was absolutely amazing. And one of the good things that happened, because of the pandemic, that a number of enterprises really had to launch new applications, had to change the way they were doing business, and suddenly data became a lot more important than what it used to be. And then the term that data is the new oil started getting used a lot more than what we had seen in the past. So good, bad, ugly, the world of data really exploded in last 2.5 years. So absolutely amazing journey. Your question on the great reshuffle and what we witnessed. Honestly, when you have people leaving and the talent market was really hot at a point in time, was also the time when a lot of companies started accepting moonlighting because there were hardly any people. So when you don't have people and somebody says I'm going to work at 2 places, you say okay, I will live with it, right? And then you are trying to make the most of what you have. But I think from a NetApp standpoint, a couple of good things happened. One is that we had a reasonably good bench that we had built up coming out of fresh, college graduates, and that was a program that we had built over a period of time. So we had reasonable amount of bench that was there. The second is I think the company was very resilient in reorganizing very quickly when people left, and hiring of course was not easy because given the environment you won't know whether somebody is joining till the date the person actually joins, right? Even till an hour back you're not sure whether somebody will join or not in that environment. But I think given the way we were structured, the way we embraced the virtual world, we could get other people to do a lot more than what we were doing. Now, fortunately, we didn't see them back, right? Could we have done better? Always the case. I mean, when you look back, you can always think of 10 things that one could have done better. But I can tell you that the results were absolutely staggering. I mean, amazing that we have never seen before. So touch wood, the great resignation didn't help us. But the one thing that I will say to you specifically, Abhay, is that the way the team relied on social media and online presence went up significantly than in the past. And in the B2B business, you have an element of organization and people. On the people side, the face-to-face became a mix of face-to-face and doing a lot of research on the people, habits, what they post, who their friends are, what videos they have. And I think a lot of the sellers started building a profile of the customers even before they had met them. So I think that change really got accelerated during the COVID. And without any doubt, LinkedIn played a very important role in that process. So with that, back to you, Abhay.
Thanks a lot. I think clearly businesses pivoted and businesses will continue to pivot considering the macro environment that we have. Hoshie, over to you. And I know the next set of questions are from you.
Thank you. I'm back. I don't know whether anyone realized, but I had a technical outage. My system just froze, so I exited and I had to kind of come back. Let me just get to my next question. And this one goes to, give me a moment. I am just reopening my notes. So, Ashwini, we'll start with you, and, Tabrez, then we will kind of come to you. The context is the same, okay? And the question is, how are revenue leaders such as yourself being agile and thoughtful in the way you are empowering your frontline managers to coach their teams, a lot better in the changing macro environment? We know there are tech points across sales cycles and things become more complex. So, Ashwini, over to you.
No, thanks, Hoshie. And I think that was quite enlightening, the earlier segment. So agility, definitely picking up one of the things that Abhay mentioned, decision makers are changing. I see that as a good thing. That's an opportunity if you're agile. So if you know that there is going to be a new CEO, you can and should quickly do your research. Reach out to that person before they start. That's when they are the most open, before they are whitewashed in the new company and tons of operational issues land up. If you can go in with a strategic insight or two, a couple of concrete proposals, you don't need to push them, just leave it there. That is something that I think has worked for me in the past and, demonstrates agility. I want to pick up on this theme a little bit of how do you coach the frontline teams? And we try to send a couple of messages. One is be extremely customer centric, and there is this well-known story, Anne Mulcahy, when she took over as CEO of Xerox, called Warren Buffett and said, I'm starting as the CEO of this company in trouble, what do I do? And he had two pieces of advice for her. This is well reported. He said, one, focus completely and totally on your customers. Second, lead your people as if their livelihoods and lives depended on your success. And she said, that's what I did. And so it's about the customer and it's about your people. So with the customers, you have to give value. Sales is often seen as a one-way street where I have to sell something to someone. We should think about giving back. Customers are in difficulty. Everybody is facing uncertainty, rising interest costs, renegotiated contracts and whatnot. So we need to start by being empathetic, really understand what's going on, and then have a dialogue. Number one. Number two, realize that it not only the people who have the word sales on their business cards are in sales. The supply chain people are also in sales. The IT people are also in sales. There is a tremendous amount of insight in the chain that serves the customer. So leverage that, walk the corridors, find out who has the best ideas, find out who the smartest people are. And they are these days increasingly likely to be 20-year-old or 25 years old, right? And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who it is. The ideas may not even come from inside your own company. So be aware of this whole ecosystem thinking. So I would summarize by saying, be very, very sharply focused on the customers, hold them very, very close, and give back a little bit, help them. It will come back to you. And the second is be relentless in your search for the best talent in the company. Be relentless in your search for matching the best people to the best opportunities or the toughest problems that the customers want you to solve. I'll pause there.
Thank you, Tabrez. Thank you. Very interesting perspectives. We really don't have the time to recap the responses, so we'll go on to Tabrez.
Absolutely. Hoshie, I'll just probably would like to build on what Ashwini said. For us, the traction has been coming from India, but of late we've been kind of selling to the US market from India. and there is no way for me to obviously have the team travel from here, so I have to depend a lot on digitization. But when you talk about coaching and empowerment, very strong word, very huge expansive words. The first thing that what we've started and what has worked for us is to actually create a sense of purpose and to enable a storytelling process within the sales team, so that the information sharing between other stakeholders become much more fluent. And what we've discovered, right, for selling a SaaS solution, obviously in global markets, I'm sure all of you would agree that clients would obviously get into a lot of proof of concepts and maybe elongating those sales cycle. What we've discovered from these sessions is that we've started doing workshops because it's much more easier to do a workshop in the virtual setting rather than a physical setting, right? It's easier to get those stakeholders. We ourselves, 17 odd people getting, kind of connected today from various parts of the geographies. It's easier to get a buy-in there. So we've kind of, moved towards getting those workshops at place. We've coached our, sales team and our, implementations team to kind of, get towards that particular thing. The other is we've actually institutionalized the deep discovery questions that a sales team needs to ask and achieve a sense of purpose within the client stakeholders. It's not about selling also, it's actually about knowing the future strategic outputs for a client, keeping the client in the center and then knowing what would work for him in the long run and not in the short term also. Apart from this, then you have to empower the sales team with the right tools. As I said, if we were selling to international markets outside India or even within India, it's important to kind of, equip them with the right tools. We've done with a various sales enablement platform. We've used LinkedIn Sales Navigator a lot, but with the right kind of coaching on those tech tools, what we've achieved is we've got deeper insights onto what customers are looking at, and then therefore it has gone into reducing our entire sales cycle in that particular process. So the content creation, the case studies, everything, the sales people don't have to kind of make it themselves. There are tools that can do that and that can do that faster. So you have to coach them to get into a alignment of using digital stack also, and then get into alignment of actually interacting, able to interact, actually share a virtual coffee together when you're actually selling to those stakeholders outside. So we've got a fine balance, luckily, but we'll see with how the industry transforms, and then particularly be agile into adopting those kind of practices inherently.
Thank you. One of the things I appreciate, and I think more than me, my colleague who's going to write the story will appreciate, is nice, direct, quick responses. I'm going to take on the next question, and the next question will be 1 second. Is going to be Raj, followed by Tarun Singhal. Global headwinds, B2B industry apparently in trouble, and actually, frankly, being in media, I don't know where it is headed. There are signs that things are going to slow down even more. Some data that's kind of come my way thanks to Abhay and Mimosa is buyers are doing their own research online. Reps only have 5% of customers' total purchase time. That's something that we've kind of always known. For many sales leaders, that's really a small window to influence the buying decision. Then there is another piece of data that, which is possible through the pandemic. We saw a 79% rise in sales emails, a lot of spam and unrequired mail. And that's kind of resulted in a 30% drop in response. And, more frightening data is that 68% of organizations reported missing their sales targets in July, down from earlier months. Now, this is something that obviously I can't name companies, in media, a lot of us give us information and confidence, but a very large organization just told me last Friday or Friday before last that their jazz quarter was worse than a COVID quarter, okay, which was scary. So, let's kind of, therefore, dive into the question. And Raj, we'll go with you first, and then Tarun, come to you. How do you make sure that when customers are doing their online research, a lot of time is being spent online, okay, like I said, and reps are getting just 5%. How is your brand visible? So, online research could be ads, LinkedIn that, you'll have been talking about, is visible and client facing and as seen as, thought leaders and, trusted partners when you guys advertise. Raj?
Sure. So we are essentially a B2C business, and our B2B business, which is selling to corporates, is still a very young business. It's like we started this business 4 years ago, and then COVID hit, and so to answer the question, I think we basically built our sales and marketing on two broad principles. The first one is digitize as much as you can. I mean, so what we try and do is try and make this entire process as much online and without human effort, which basically means that figuring out where our customer or where our customer profile is becomes paramount. So what we do is we try and see, okay, where can we reach the person or the persona of the person we want to reach socially? What are the channels available? Like LinkedIn is the prime one, but there are others as well. And the second principle is contextual selling. What we have learned from our B2C experiences, that you have to sell in the moment. I mean, if for example, if you're trying to serve a SaaS solution for corporate travel, then it's just not about reaching the right person, but also about serving him the right content. So I think, Hoshie, these are the two principles: that digitize as much, try and reach people not physically but online, and secondly, serve them the right content at the right moment. So we have a content-led strategy towards this.
I mean, for us, we made it very simple with no rocket science, and I would say the focus for us was primarily on being authentic. So you may not find Sopra anywhere and everywhere, but wherever we are, we have been able to create an impact, and we are seen as trusted partner. Now, to ensure the brand visibility, we paid attention to, we know where the customers are. Instead of self-praise, we focused on industry-relevant topics and a focused approach. In terms of our focused social media marketing and branding plan, we worked on 3 areas. One, highlighted our company culture. Second, we encouraged our internal customers, which is our own employees and colleagues, to share their experiences. And last but not the least, announcing company news and notable wins. Now, with these very simple steps, and with the help of all of this kind of content, we witnessed around 75% year-on-year growth on LinkedIn, with an average growth of 50 to 60% on other social media platforms.
Going to my next question in line with the same thing, and I am mindful, I'm going to get more mindful of the time, and all of you are helping with quicker responses. So, we'll take the response first from Puneet and then move to Amit. Puneet, keeping the same context in mind, the window of opportunity to influence buyers is narrowed down. How are you making sure that your team members are doing relevant research before they get in front of the customer, and what data sources are they kind of leveraging?
Okay, so let's think of this, that as the transition happened from the physical world to the virtual world, the part that changed significantly was how we dealt with people and how we made assessment about how the engagement is going to go, right? Because in the B2B world, you need to have that feel, that sense of the relationship and the confidence. In any business, there is an element of the organization and there's an element of the people. The organization part probably didn't change as much because the same amount of information was available online as was before. But I think the people part changed very significantly. And the way the people part changed was that now there was a lot more reliance on the online presence of the individual, who's friends with who, what they are posting, and so on. So I think sellers started relying on that kind of information significantly more. The second thing that I think a lot of people did was to look at data within their own organizations that existed, if any, for a particular customer, right? What we have done for them in the past, what kind of calls came in, what incidents happened, and you looked at that data to kind of build as much insight. So I guess in times when the feasibility for meeting people didn't exist, and like I heard earlier on the call, that if your business is Europe and US, then anyway you don't have that option. a lot of people relied on the online presence and the social media data, and of course their own data. Now, one of the things that changed also is that when you look at social media, a lot of it is not structured data. I mean, it's not like you can go into a database and type and you start getting stuff. So a lot of tools started also coming in that helped you to find that search, look at analytics, and so on. And this is what you call all the sales tools. And in my view, that as the world is shifting back, and as the story of lockdown is kind of behind us, a new world is emerging, where the goodness of the virtual world remains, but people will complement it with the feel good of the physical time. Just that the ratio of the physical time spent is going to go down. So in my view, it's a new world that will emerge, more efficient, more productive, better for both the customer and the seller. So back to you, Hoshie.
I think interesting point. I'll probably align myself with TABREZ, what he mentioned. For us, important point was, and we started, by the way, during the pandemic, our B2B business. We looked at research as the primary way to enter into B2B prospecting. We started working on reimagining our KPIs. We live in knowledge-driven economy now. Everything is available, but it is so overwhelming that getting to a right narrowing set is most important for us, or most critical for us. We started looking at putting up dedicated time for our people. The KPIs became really narrower on research. Our BD team and our sales team are now putting enough focus on using some of these interesting tools. Data sets are available, but so what we did here at Rakuten is that we looked at some of the interesting tools, and we used LinkedIn and Sales Navigator for highly targeted prospecting. But we also started looking at the other research tools, which can help us narrow down on use cases and the competitor information. There are quite a few of them are available. But majority of our work revolves around, or research revolves around LinkedIn being the most accurate source of information. But I'll just extend it a little further on this, and the entire B2B sales now, B2B SaaS-based product sales is also revolving around something called speed, right? So we essentially are trying to reduce that time frame of 6 months or 1 year cycle to maybe 3 months or even smaller. So we started building up a little bit more content side of work. Raj mentioned about the reasons, but we started looking at more digital ways to engage with the customer. So we are researching the first way. We are researching using more and more tools, including LinkedIn, Sales Navigators, and those kind of stuff. We also started looking at more and more personalization on content that we build and reach out to. And marketing, of course, gonna plays a very important role on nurturing that. So net is that a lot of modern age tools are kind of being helpful for us, looking at headwinds now in this time.
Samit, and thanks Hoshie. And I know, Tarun, you just joined in. I'm not sure if you got the gist of what we're discussing because you did join a little bit later, but I would kind of want to hear your views as well on this. What we're kind of talking off the fact is, you heard a lot of speakers talked about being authentic, giving back in terms of adding value. I think when Puneet joined in, his background screen talked about the fact that putting customer first is something that he is really passionate about. So I think everyone comes from the view that you want to have the right solution for the customers. You want to make the impact really, really meaningful. However, the window of opportunity for you to make that impact is narrowing down, and therefore your first step is the right step, is something that everyone is striving to achieve. And I wanted to get your sense on this topic from your organization's point of view.
You've got to be where the customer is, right? I think that's the real point here. And whether it's through product, through process, or through your marketing, or your ability to be where the customer is looking for you, it's a combination of all of these. And in my view, I think somebody did mention, how during COVID it was very important that that you were engaging with the customers. I think one way that we actually found very useful, and at least personally, this was on LinkedIn. I was that creepy guy who would look at everybody else's posts, but would never really post himself, right? So, and somehow I wanted to change that, and then I generally started writing content. And what is content, right? Content is everything that you've done in the last 20 years, or not done in the last 20 years, at least, it could be borrowed or it could be yours. But how do you start kind of reaching out? And as you start doing that and you write about, what you've learned. So, for us, it was a startup in 2008, and how we kind of, came from being, bootstrapped to basically where we are today as a listed company. But, during this journey, while for us it was just one step ahead of the other, it was also about sharing those experiences and how things can go wrong, right? I think what every entrepreneur wants to hear, what every customer wants to hear, how are you really engaging with them? So for us, the journey has been about how do we develop products that are extremely, extremely in the favor of the customer. And for us, we believe that our strength is actually not our marketing, but actually our product, where we are able to engage with customers on a level where we are identifying these needs and segmenting them very, very finely. Like, I don't think that Abhay's needs and Tarun's needs are the same, right? We live in different cities, we have different risks. So how do you kind of segment that? How do you focus on it? How do you actually use data? How do you listen to the customer? What are you really doing about the voices that you hear every day? I think for me, it's just about that, just about, minute meals that you can give to customers.
Thanks a lot. And just wanted to do a quick time check. I know a couple of us have mentioned 12:30 is a hard stop. We have about 40 minutes and we're kind of entering the last segment of this conversation. So I think we're going to be managing that time well. So let's just go on. And I think we have a perfect segue into the last section. We talked about how the macro conditions are changing. We talked about how customers are changing. The opportunity to impress them is lower. We touched upon the fact that being in front of our customers is also a responsibility of how, as an organization, we help support our frontline managers and our teams to be in this hybrid environment much more effective than they were because everyone was looking at the physical world 3 years ago, right? And that has changed, and it is not the very same environment and experience that you have when you kind of doing a presentation and trying to close a deal on the virtual side. And eventually what we're definitely seeing is, as a lot of us have talked about, that there is a lot of data that is rising. And how do you make sure that the different data sets that you now have to think about, whether you talk about social media, you talk about your own personal experiences, you talk about the input in terms of data that the organization is giving to you synthesize all of that and put it to good use. And two key motions typically happen in an organization. One is a velocity motion and the other is a value motion. And I think both of them are very, very different motions, and we need to realize when do we go after velocity without compromising on the value in these times. And LinkedIn kind of did a couple of things, I think about 2-3 quarters ago. We went back to the drawing board and said that let's look at what is it that would be the best things that a seller organization would need, a revenue generating organization would need. And it pretty much resonates with everything that this audience has talked about. We talked about the fact that people would want to research a lot more. They would want before they reach out to anybody. So you spend a lot of time researching about your organization. We talked about ease of doing business, which could be, as Tarun said, is in terms of the products that you throwing out to your audience, or it could be ease of doing business in terms of how effectively your simple communication strategy is landing with your prospect base, right? And so we ventured out and figured out that there are 3 things that top executives and top sales professionals have done, which kind of have made them stand apart. And when I said top professionals, we did a survey where we collated this based on organizations and people who have hit their quota for about 150% and above. And the 3 things that they called out effectively, which they do better than the others, was about prioritization. There's a lot of noise that is happening out in the world. How do you make sure that you're prioritizing the right set of accounts that you're going after? The timing behind when you reach after, are you getting the right intent signals for you to engage so that you cut the noise again? And most importantly is, how do you make sure that you're thinking 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters ahead and build trusted relationships, which are going to help you not now, but in future. So I think these three things is a combination of what a lot of top professionals came back and said that this is what makes them stand apart. And I think my question obviously is, and we touched upon this earlier, that how much of science and how much of art, it's all debatable. But one of the critical things that businesses think about is how do you remove variability? How do you make sure that there is standardization that happens across the organization, across different teams and functions, so that you are a common, combined entity that is showing up in front of your customers and your alliances. So my first question obviously is to Manoj, and the question obviously is, what are you as an organization trying to do when you think about standardization? Is there anything that you want to share with this audience on steps that you're taking when you think about customer value and keeping everything standardized in the back end?
Selling is all about human intelligence and backed by data, right? So I'm being a tech company. So what we have done, actually, we bring a lot of tools to standardize the entire process, starting from the way we do prospecting, and then we go behind every opportunity and engage with them, right? Amazing to see that the progress which we have made, and these data really has helped us to kind of know, like, all those challenges in past we faced actually over the period of time, when we realized that it's helping the team a great way, in the sense like being your kind of like analyzing the data, looking into all the cubes, and minutely checking those. So we have a team. In fact, we set up a separate team to kind of analyze the entire buying cycle, our entire proposal process, reaching out. As we talked about research, we do a lot of research to understand whom we are selling, what we are selling, whether it is required, whether it is kind of going to bring in value for them. So our discussions are more kind of backed by a lot of data, and we don't go and sell. Normally what we do, actually, we engage in conversations to understand that whether precisely when we go and we offer a particular solutions to them, how that is going to bring in value for them, right? Whether it is truly, they must be using something, right? Why should they go and change? So when it comes to standardization, a lot of things which we have done, obviously all these tools, we do a lot of analytics, and thank God, I would be happy to say that we have stopped reviewing our market leaders. We stopped completely, because everywhere we have the data points. So the market leaders, they're empowered to take decisions. So we have a wonderful, whenever we join, actually, mostly once in a month, we all discuss about a lot of other things, obviously not sales, not about anything. We discuss about our kind of like, what exactly they do in their personal life, because they're empowered with data, a lot of tools in place. And then that's what we feel, that it is all about human intelligence backed by data. And if you as an organization can bring in all those and make sure that your team is backed by data, because they see this and they need to understand actually how to analyze the data. You have to help them to understand, and rest, that they are all leaders in their own place, so they will take care of that. Thanks.
And Ramana, I think Manoj made a very interesting point where he talked about a lot of data and a lot of tools that come into play. And is that a challenge when you think about standardization? Because a lot of conversation that I'm having in the market today, nearly everyone has a lot of tools that they've experimented with. And I think there is also a need for us to consolidate and think which is the best partner for us to go ahead and work with. So I'm just thinking aloud, when you think about standardization, when you think about multiple tools, what's your take on it?
And yes, when Manoj was talking about when the sales leaders meet, they don't discuss sales and marketing. It was like music to my ears. Having said that, a lot of data is there, but I think what insights you can extract out of this data is very important. Let me just quickly share what we do here at Intellect. Our sales CRM, we have classified as P0 to P5. So there are 6 steps. The first 3 steps are at the prospecting stage, and then once this prospecting stage is completed, you move to the selling process or the lead management process. I think it was ASHWINI BAKSHI, Mr. Mentioned that it's not just the sales guy who's selling, right? It's the IT guy, it's the pre-sales guy. Everybody is actually selling, and we actually say that it takes a village to complete a sale. Okay, so you need standardization if you were to give the same messaging. At the same time, while I mentioned standardization, you have to understand who the key decision makers are at the other end, right? You will have business people, business managers, you will have ops people, you will have IT people, and it can't be the same content to everyone. Okay, the story has to change to suit the requirements of who the receiver is. So this standardization and for the role or the receiver is important, and making sure everybody who is in some way going to impact the sale has the same messaging. So it is extremely critical, essentially in the initial stages of communication. I think we also discussed in the earlier segment where buyers are also doing a lot of research, right? So it is important that your SEO content is also aligned to the same selling message that you are giving, so that when they do the research, they also feel that they have through third-party sources collected the same information, which ideally is something that you are actually putting out there in the market, in the open arena to actually complete. What we also do, the science behind it is, as we go through, I think TABREZ talked about POC or demos. When you do a demo, we also do what we call as demo diagnostic. Okay, it's about the kind of questions that the participants are asking. Some people are just watching the participants to give a non-verbal cues, looking for non-verbal cues as to what's happening in that process, as to whether they are interested or not. All these gets consolidated so that you have rich insights available, so that when the deal progresses, you are able to take an informed decision how do you want to progress. The question of velocity or value, I mean, the B2B in our case at least is more about value selling than velocity selling. So we have to look for all these aspects as we progress in the sales cycle. I hope I covered the point that you wanted.
Yes, you did. And I'll come to ASHWINI asking the very similar question, but I think you made a very interesting point, and I'll just leave a small tip of what we typically do in LinkedIn, because to ASHWINI's point, every member of your workforce is going to be a brand that is going out there and representing you, right? 99% of human race is actually sellers, if you want to think about it like that. And what we typically promote and advise people is that when you think about your content strategy, think about how much of the ratio of what you would want to repost based on what is available from the company. So if you can think about 80-20 as a strategy, if you could just look at the content that is available and start reposting that on your social handle, that has a very powerful impact, and the remaining 20% probably could just be your own content that you're really, really passionate about. But ASHWINI, again, the question back to you is, how do you think about removing variability in the business, and therefore the question around standardization comes around?
That's a tough one, Abhay. How do you remove variability in the business? I think at two levels. One is, at least I like to say that while 80-85% of the organization should be focused on today's business, on delivering the quarter, on closing the deals, which are in negotiation stage, 10-15%, maybe 20%. If you take the Google rule of 20% discretionary time, they should be looking ahead. They should be looking 2 years out. They should be solving tomorrow's problems, because we know those problems are coming. So that's one way to reduce variability, because you've got to build a pipeline of new BD or new business development, as we call it. Could be a product, could be a sector. Just to give an example, in our business, which is fiber business, it struck us just recently that we should be talking to an adjacent customer segment, which are netcos and towercos, because eventually they will get into the game and become large customers, which they are not at the moment. So that's one idea. The other one is how to systematically, and I think comments have been made earlier, how do you systematically enable that? How do you program that? And it's partly a cultural issue. We have to be thinking constant growth. When I'm relatively new at STL, in my 4th month, but I'm already saying to my sales team, in addition to looking at your funnel and your quotas and so on, I want to hear about one impact that you're driving. It doesn't have to be a PO number, doesn't have to be an order book number. Could be a customer problem that you solve, a partnership that you stitch up, something, but it has to be in some way measurable that creates value for the customer. That unlocks a whole new mindset of thinking about growth and productivity, of course, but also adding value to the customer. Systems wise, what we want to do, we're not there yet. And I was in this conversation with my IT and Salesforce people. There's nobody from Salesforce.com, but they are a key player in this whole thing. And how do we use a tool like that? How do we make that a community and not just a repository of, deal and opportunities and so on, but much more than that? Use that to track cases, use that to learn in the last 5 meetings, what did the customer say? Perhaps deploy AI algorithms to do unstructured analysis and say, well, this deal is not going to close because in the last 5 meetings, the same things keep coming up and looks like they're not resolved. We are not there yet, but there is so much data and information to be mined, and we are looking to technology to take the friction out of some of that.
No, thank you so much, Ashwini. I think you made some very interesting points. I would just want to take the segment further, and nearly every company, if you're headquartered in India, this is also the time when you're thinking about future. As you said, you do things, you go with a change growth mindset to think about what is it that you want to do 3 months down the line or 3 quarters down the line, and that has a huge impetus. And as I said, today most of the companies in India are going through the planning cycle, thinking about the future of how FY24 is, and businesses are pivoting into a very different model. I know organizations who have sitting out of here and wanting to serve the world outside are thinking about different geographies that they would want to now tap into because what is happening in the macro environment. I know people who are focused on the domestic market are finding pockets in tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities. If you're looking at BFSI, you would realize that a lot of HNI population is coming up in a very different set of pockets, which was not available earlier. So my question, Tarun, I think it's going to be to you first, is when you think about the sales planning methodology itself, how do you make sure in your planning process that you are prioritizing the right set of accounts that you would want to go after, or the right set of geographies that you would want to dig into?
I think it's all about adapting your businesses to the current ecosystem. With respect to prioritizing the right account, in my view, the bigger objective and the thought process of the organization should sync up with that of ours. Whether it is anywhere in the globe or the local. And the right time to engage, continuous feedback from team members, help in understanding the market sentiment, the highs and lows. Since the team on the ground, these insights help in identifying the right time and overall approach. Leveraging new age tools and technologies is a key element that helps in sales planning. But I love the classic game of snakes and ladders as a good example, because if you're bidding for an opportunity and there are 5 bidders, it's like a snakes and ladder game. There is no fun of losing it at being bitten by a snake at 99. If you qualify hard, if you plan hard, you don't need to play the whole game. And unless you have planned it well, you have qualified it, hard qualified it, you will pass through that 99 and get through that 100 as well. Gartner's Future of Sales research shows that by 2025, 80% of B2B sales interactions between suppliers and buyers will occur in digital channels. Now, this is because 33% of all buyers desire a seller-free sales experience, a preference that climbs to 44% for millennials. Now, we all realize that in each of our organizations, over 75% of the workforce today is millennials. Now, through my sales and marketing professional career, I've always kept the 4 C's: capability, customer, channel, and competitor model on top of my planning chart. I'll put a pause there, Abhay, and would like to hear some more thoughts from other colleagues here.
Thanks. I think never have I ever used or heard snakes and ladder come in a context like that, but really good analogy. I would turn my attention to Tarun and you and then to Puneet, asking the very similar question. when you think about prioritization, that's the first step. And there could be different pockets which are giving you revenue today, but pockets which can give you revenue tomorrow, which is the growth number. But then as Tarun was talking about prioritization, also comes when there's so much noise in the world and there's so much activity that's happening, how do you make sure that you know when is the right time to engage is also a very, very critical part of the whole challenge, right? So any views that you had which you wanted to share with us?
I think, of course, you're right. When and who are the only two questions to answer, right? And the way I look at it, and we have a very large sales team, right? And how do you kind of make sure they're going after the right customer and yet not cherry picking, right? You have to find the fine balance between the two. But it's quite clear, right? There are two sides to it. One is, the very logical data-driven science which does, how do you kind of prioritize a customer based on probability of buying or probability of closure or probability of profit, right? So to speak. And on the other side, there is a gut that a sales guy carries. How do you make sure that that's also incorporated in the whole thing? So I think this is where, in the previous conversation we were having about standardization of systems, right? This is where a system has to assist the sales or the marketing teams to kind of go after the right customers in the right time. So I'll give you an analogy right here. What happens generally is in Mumbai, when rains happen, it's a great time to sell car insurance, right? Because suddenly every Mumbaite is worried about, my engine's going to go for a toss, do I have engine protector, etc., etc., etc. Right. Similarly, in Delhi, whenever the pollution rises, everybody thinks about health insurance. It's not like they're not ending up in hospitals before or after that. But during that time, everybody believes that the bad air is going to kill me. So, how do I make sure that the guys have it? How are they pitching it? See, the 8-9 months in Delhi, you don't have pollution, so your pitching point might be about your health, your family's health, yada, yada, yada. But during those 3 months, the salesmen also have to mention, ki sir, dekho, it's pollution around you, and it's like smoking 21 cigarettes a day. So why don't you buy insurance, right? And so this has to get incorporated, right? This has to get systemized in a way that we're not forgetting the art and the science, and yet there's a customer connect that gets stepped up. So I think the right balance is between system and person, and not leaving or not being too dependent on one, while is not ignoring one either.
And I think it's very important to figure out how do you get those signals as an organization so that you know that you could sell way ahead of time. Puneet, your views?
Thanks, Abhay. So, 2-3 thoughts, right? One, in any business, there are always the obvious, right, that you will look at, and growth always comes from white space. So, for most companies and most business leaders, they will know where their white space sits, parts of business that they haven't engaged before, or if they engaged, then they didn't succeed. Right? But I think there's another part of growth, or finding the right customer, that comes from what we read in the press, what we see in social media and online presence. And for example, if you notice the way the whole digital natives segment has evolved in India over the last about 10 or 15 years, many of these companies are reasonably new to the market. Some have been there for quite some time, but many of them have been there in the last 5 or 6 years. And I think when you read the press and when you look at social media, then you start getting a sense that there are a whole lot of other customer set that's sitting out there that one has not engaged with before. And in my view, if you look at both of these, right, the obvious and what we kind of read that we're not aware of, and then you start matching that with your own organization's capability, or what you want to do, or where you think there will be meeting of the minds, or for the lack of a better word, what's your sweet spot, right? And sometimes for many companies, it's like you're doing very well on one portfolio, and there's another part of the portfolio that you are struggling with, and then something becomes a white space for that. I think if you look at all of these, then it will, you will start finding at least a reasonable customer set over the next couple of years. Now to the point of timing, right? Sometimes timing, this is, and for people who invest in stocks, it's like timing the market. And I'm not sure whether timing when to go to a customer is always, you'll have the perfect answer. In the B2B business, it's always about the relationship. right? And honestly, my view is if you get to a customer at the time when they're about to make a purchase, it's too late. So I'll be happier dealing with a customer reasonably ahead of time when the customer has a requirement is going to come up, because you use the time to build relationship and establish your value. And honestly, my take is, rather than really timing to the last day or the week, if you figure out who the potential buyers are over next 12 to 18 months, then that's a good enough story to start engaging. Some will buy in 3 months, some in 6, some in 9. But eventually we make sure that look, we are across those customers with our story. So now back to you.
Yeah, perfect. I think I'm just doing a quick time check again. We have 17 minutes. I'm being conscious of everyone's time. Hoshie, over to you. I know the next, we just have 4 more speakers to go. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to be well within the time. So Hoshie, over to you.
I hope so too. So, responses have been great. I'm wondering how we're going to edit these, but let me dive into the questions straight away. Raj, we'll start with you, and then TABREZ will come to you. Again, going to request for a short response. So whilst we talk about imbibing and cultivating a value-based selling approach, that focuses on helping our customers, I keep talking about creating value all the time. It'll be great, to hear from you all, your inputs on what are the top 3 traits, and since we have a time limitation, top 1 or 2 traits that your teams demonstrate whilst keeping your customers, ahead of everything that you all do, so that you all become a trusted advisor to your buyers.
So, Hoshie mentioned 2 actually, one soft and one hard. The soft part, I mean the soft part of this is, and something that we are very careful about, is being 100% transparent. I mean, whether we can do something or that capability exists, or if there's a solution that we are not the best, then we also recommend a competitor. So I think the first thing that we've imbibed as a team is being like 100% transparent. Revenue comes later, and try and consult rather than sell. I mean, and that's something we fundamentally believe in as a sales team. The second part is slightly a hard skill and most of us have also mentioned this fact that when you sell technology, you should know technology. So we try, the way we hire, the way we bring our teams up, is know the underlying tech, whether it's supply tech or consumer tech. Know the technology we are selling, so that our teams are 100% comfortable on the product, on the technology. We do not undersell or oversell what we have built. Yeah, these 2.
I'll also stick to 2. The first thing is that the team is absolutely chasing CSAT. I mean, CSAT is a god word in B2C, but it's kind of still flowing into B2B. They are all CSAT lovers, so they keep the customers in the midst of the journey, and therefore they are information evangelists also. That's one of the important skill trait that we look at, because of the CSAT effectiveness, that they keep the customer in the center of the journey. Information sharing becomes much more relevant, and from both sides, I mean, our team has to ensure that there is a proper balance of being receptive as well as relaying it. So when you're being receptive, then you're hearing the customers a lot, and then you could maybe probably relay the information better. So we've kind of documented what the customer says, gone into bettering the CSAT score, and ensuring, as Rishi said, being very transparent what you can do. You can't be saying yes to everything. You have to be sometimes a no man also, because that helps in kind of bettering the relationship overall. So these are some things that we've kind of deployed, these traits we've deployed, and we've seen some kind of success.
Really quick responses. Abhay, last question to you, then 3-4 minutes for takeaways, and there is a survey. A quick 1 minute survey at the end. So
yeah. And I think I loved the 2 answers that came from both Rishi and TABREZ. My reflection on this is that skills is the new currency that we normally have to go after. So hiring based on skills that we require to make sure that our customers get the best, whether it is the value or the CSAT score or the satisfaction index, becomes the basic things that a lot of companies are relying on right now. So no longer it's just how much experience do you have you gone to the right school, right colleges, have you sold to those companies before? It's a big factor, but hiring for skills is, I think, the new way of making sure the teams are successful. my next question, obviously, we talked a lot about customers, we talked a lot about adding value, and this is specifically focused on one key element that we believe is really, really critical. And this is where I think Tarun mentioned at some point in time, if I remember correctly, that a large part of sales effort is also about how do you land marketing well, right? And pretty much any organization that you speak to, hand on heart, they will tell you that sales and marketing alignment is probably something that they would want to solve for. And in LinkedIn, we kind of call it as the one revenue generating engine or one revenue generating office. And that's how we approach it, right? So my question obviously is to Amit, and because you head both sales and marketing, both of these functions kind of sit with you. My question is, how do you ensure that the sales and marketing both are going after the right set of customers? Is there's a perfect harmony of what the dollars that you're spending on marketing efforts versus the dollar that you're spending on sales today versus nurturing for the future are going in the right direction? Because as even Puneet said, there is going to be a portion of your business that's going to focus on this quarter, but what is it that you want to do in the future is what marketing plays also a big role in. So how do you balance these two? I think that's going to be a very good view for this audience.
This is probably the most important question when I took over this marketing and marketing role as well. For us, as you rightly said, the dollar remains the same. We want to use maximum out of that. Originally, when we looked at our plans, they were two different KPIs, and directionally they were very, very misaligned. One side, you're looking at just generating, the marketing qualified leads and the visibility and number of activities as KPI for marketing. For sales, it was really different, right? They are looking for closers, they are looking for making it quick numbers, etc. So we aligned it first. What we did is that we started looking at more sales aligned, ROI driven campaigns where sales define what their objectives are for the quarter and for the long term. We also looked at creating more larger plans for branding and those activities. So we kind of divided in two parts. One is account based, which is hyper personalized, which and that is a significant portion goes into digital side of it. For that, again, I'm saying this, but LinkedIn helps us a lot personalizing it. We started looking at specific campaigns for our key accounts and nurturing as a so the funda that we have started is looking at our customer life cycle. Is not about individual campaign, is about the customer. So no customer goes untouched at any point of time, and is not about prospecting and qualifying out, but also nurturing that activity. So we looked at key account management or ABM for the specific sales needs. We also started looking at how we align for tomorrow. And that is where we started taking up the branding needs also. Now, Rakuten being a large company and a multi kind of diversified businesses, we started kind of focusing around how do we build brands in the non-Rakuten business zones or areas or regions. That is where branding helps us with a long-term view of what we are going to launch in those areas. So we are kind of aligning both of these together with a single KPIs and single carries, which is mostly driven from a revenue standpoint, not only focusing around how you are ensuring the leads only for your dollar investment. So this helps us in some way.
I think great point. Especially a lot of marketers focus on account-based marketing as a key. I think I've always had challenges when it comes to growth marketing and performance marketing. I think that is where the disconnect pretty much happens, that where's the dollars being spent versus is my sales folks going after the same set of audience that we're trying to attack now and nurture for the future. And I know we have another person in the room. Tarun, if you could just in about 60 seconds or very briefly touch upon how you're thinking about this, because you hold again both these hats in the organization that you have. Both sales and marketing comes under you. So any nuggets that you would want to share on how that alignment or misalignment can be negated?
I'm guessing this is this Tarun. Sorry, there were two Taruns, so I always get confused in the queue.
But just as my quick thoughts, I would like to re-emphasize the relevance of connection in today's world and how we could be more real in this virtual world, because in my view, sales and marketing is all about right connections and staying ignited. So I keep talking about it with ignited. It's very simple. I for innovate, G for growth, N for natural, I for integrity, T for trust. Abhi, you mentioned earlier. So trust is a crucial currency of this digital economy. And in a post-COVID world, it's all the more important that we develop faith in each other, capabilities to accomplish common goals. And last but not the least, E is for empathy and engage. So continue to connect with the people regardless of the boundaries and limitations, religious, social, physical, or economical, and engage with them to achieve meaningful outcomes. So stay ignited, IGNITE.
We need to have more chats so that we can take some of these learnings. But Tarun, if you just want to wrap this up, this is probably going to be the last question. I'm just going to wrap it up after that.
So my take here is that marketing and sales, I don't see them as very different. I think they're part of the same set of people, because for me it's a relay race, right? So marketing is for me is supposed to get interested customers to a point where their interest is almost tipping to buying, and it's a sales job to kind of engage with them and then take them to the closing line. And I think they're both equally important. They just need to work together. I mean, the Continentals didn't win the war against the British if they didn't have A, the French, and B, the militia, right? And there were a bunch of farmers and a bunch of guys who had no interest in the war. So I think that both have to work together. Somehow they've got to make sure that the customer is taken care of. It's like being handled from one point to the other and just getting them through the cycle. And it can be tough for a customer. It can be quite jarring, given what products you sell. For it to work together. So I think the messaging which you see, so the way I look at it, and I'll wrap this up, what you see as a message on a Google ad or a LinkedIn ad versus what is the message that your website gives them versus, let's say, if there's a telecaller, what he's saying, and at the end how he transacts and what he gets is the promise. I think if all of these are connected, and I know we mentioned 2 minutes ago that B2C is very important to have a great CSAT. I think perfect CSATs come from how well these are coordinated. And I think that's just the key to everything.
So I'll keep my kind of summarizing this to only a couple of minutes, not more than that. And my key takeaway so firstly, thank you everyone for participating in this event, in this roundtable. Lovely ideas and lovely conversations. I'm sure everyone has a lot of things to take away. One clear thing that I took away from this was the fact that there is customer at the front and center of nearly everything. Everybody talked about being customer first as a strategy. When I walked into this roundtable, my first thought was that people are going to talk about, and a lot of leaders in this room are going to talk about the macro environment and how that is impacting our business. I didn't see any of that happening, and I think that was such a sign of good relief, which takes me to the point that there is definite opportunity in the market for all of us to go after. I think APAC and in India, even outside globally, the sentiments might be different in different parts of the world, but India definitely is a place where the sentiments are very, very positive, and there are pockets of the population where we still have enough and more that we can take out and be successful and add value at the same time across the length and breadth of the businesses that we are in. I wanted to shamelessly plug in what LinkedIn can do to support. I'm sure a lot of good things came out in this conversation around how LinkedIn has been probably riding this wave when digital came in. A lot of people talked about Sales Navigator, which is all part of the sales solution piece of the business that we run. I'll take a step back and kind of say that why we're relevant is not because of the tools and technology that we have, but why we're relevant is pretty much because of the member base that we have on the platform and what they do on the platform. So, as I said initially, we have about close to 100 million members on the platform. These are the ones who are working in about 3 million companies. These are the ones who are upskilling themselves continuously, trying to portray a brand of themselves, engaging on the platform much more than ever before. And the data and insights that we have bases the activity that is happening on the platform kind of gives us a lot of dimensions of what is happening in the global economy and in India, kind of insights that probably might work for you. Things like which company is growing, which company is probably going through a bad phase, which is the sector, which is the country, which is the specific city in India that probably is prospering more. You see more activity happening there because more startups are showing up there. What is the flow of conversations that are happening on the platform? So all that are things that get captured on the platform, and these are the ones that provide intent signals to sellers and to the organization to take the right decisions. Whether it is a personalized conversation that you want to have in a B2B sales, or if you think about going and doing an outreach which is more widespread, I think both these spaces is where we have a role to play. And I would love to have this conversation going forward post this roundtable as well. Yeah, so I know we're 1 minute over. A few of us have to leave. Hoshie, I would just want to plug this in with the last survey. I think there is a survey link.
I put it in. I put in the survey, and once it's a 1 minute survey, and Abhay, I just had to kind of echo some of the stuff that you kind of said. One is, I'm very glad that nobody's speaking about a slowdown and stuff. Though there are impending signs. I did mention that one company told me they had a horrible quarter. We are not seeing it. The first thing you guys cut when something goes wrong is marketing budgets, which is what media survives on. And we've got a huge pipeline and booking till March, frighteningly large. So we don't know the signs. That's very good. The second thing I have to tell you all that whilst you all might be seeing Businessworld as a B2C brand, our revenues come from B2B. And besides the audience having learned, thank you for that. I think I've learned a lot of stuff because I run the PNL also here. So thank you for participating. Good if you all could. Just fill in. I put in a survey link right now. I hope you'll have found it. It'll just take about a minute. I tried it. So that would be helpful. And thank you. Thank you very much for joining us here.